welcome back to the Private Practice Growth Club YouTube channel. Today I'm joined by Truida Botha, who is a psychologist based in Pretoria, and she's going to be sharing with us her practice journey, not only in private practice, but also another business that she started, which I'm really excited for you all to hear about. So welcome, Truida, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Tasneem. It's really an honor being here. Hi, all.
So I prefer for my guests to introduce themselves rather than me reading off like a long bio. So why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, great. Yes, so I am based in Irene, Centurion. I'm a registered educational psychologist. And I've been in practice. I tried making my sums this morning. I think this is the 21st year after I registered as a psychologist. And out of the 21 years, I have been in private practice for 17. And I've always been in the Gauteng area, except when my husband and I and our two children were based as expats in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, for 4 years. And during that period, I did my PhD. So after we arrived back, I think that was in 2019, I haven't done any ed psych work in terms of assessments and so forth. But I mainly work with adults now. I work from a solution-focused positive psychology framework. It just resonates with me as a person, and I love seeing how clients basically just find their strengths and build upon that.
So tell me, how did you decide to become a psychologist? What led you there?
I always wanted to be in a helping profession. So when I started out in high school, I think it was early high school, I started thinking about physiotherapy or occupational therapy, speech therapy. But I've always liked working with people, chatting to people. I don't know why, but my friends used me as a sounding board, etc. So, and I quite enjoyed that. So I always knew that it must be helping profession. And then the decision was actually made for me as I got a bursary to go and study education to work it from that way around. So I always knew that I wouldn't end up as a teacher or an educator, but that would be the stepping stone to psychology. And I was lucky enough to have all my degrees just one after the other roll on, and that's where I ended up as an ed psych.
Amazing. So, I mean, I think a lot of people that are in the psychology profession I speak to often talk about, the difficulty of progressing through the stages. And I think that for people who aren't in the psychology profession, they don't realize that you don't just, because everybody knows you can go and do the undergrad of psychology, but most people think that that's like where it ends. They don't realize how difficult it is. And in fact, another guest of mine who explained as well that when she said that she wanted to do psychology, a lot of people said, "No, you're crazy. You're never going to get in because it's so hard and all of that." So tell me a little bit about that journey, not necessarily only from your perspective, but for those people out there who maybe are considering becoming a psychologist. What are some of the things that's important to be aware of when you're embarking on that journey?
I think this is a reality in South Africa. So this is a very it's a very fresh topic to discuss. I think the first thing is to keep your options as open as possible. I would suggest that. Secondly, know that it's tough, but don't diss yourself or give yourself the opportunity and a fighting chance. You can either go the BA route, BSc or BCom, or as I did, the education route, B Prim Ed. But I always think, and when I speak to younger students, I say do something that in the interim, before you qualify as a psychologist, that you can fall back onto. So for instance, if you then do the BA Psych, maybe do your education diploma, just to have something to fall back on, because reality is you will not necessarily get selected for honors or for masters, but then at least you've got an income and you can start working while you work your way through the channels of getting registered. It is tough, but I believe if you really set your mind to it, nothing is impossible. It might just take a year or two longer, but it's possible.
And then the other thing that I think is often like a misconception about mental health in general. I mean, obviously, we're both in the mental health space. And with talk therapy specifically, people on the outside always think of it as, but, you just sit there and listen, which obviously listening is a big part of it. But, there's going to be cases where you get clients with really heavy stuff that you have to listen to, or in cases where you have clients where it's actually like a life or death situation, like or where they have high risk. And so what are some of the, for people who are not in the psychology profession, what are some of the things that you'd like them to understand about the profession? Like what are some of the really challenging bits, not from a practice point of view, but from a profession point of view?
I think from a profession point of view, one of the big things that you need to look out for is knowing your scope of practice. Okay. So you develop that. That's actually also, it grows with you, it matures with you as you go along. But to be able to identify red flags, such as a person being a danger to himself or to other people, when to refer to another professional, when it is outside your scope, and also not trying to, and knowing that you cannot save. You cannot save or rescue anybody, and not taking that responsibility upon yourself. I think in my early years, that was a huge challenge of me, is letting go, and not taking the client and his problems or whatever home with me. But as I said, I think as we go along, as we mature as people and as healthcare providers, you learn the trade and you start noticing behavioral patterns or talking patterns that you just know, oops, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I'm qualified for. And then to build up a network. I am very for building up a network, supporting each other, and also just knowing who are the people that you can refer to. Whether it be psychiatrists, or a clinical psychologist or an occupational therapist. For instance, I had a client the other day. He needs to learn how to manage with his time, and the occupational therapist actually did wonders with this mature 44-year-old bipolar or client that has been diagnosed with bipolar, to help him cope in a working environment. So I think build up a network, know who you can refer to, when you need to refer to, because I think that's crucial, your timing as well.
Yeah. So speaking of scope or going into a specific area of specialty, what is your area of specialty or your niche?
Okay. I think it has changed over the 20 years. I did very much educational psychology prior to 2015. I was part of a multidisciplinary team, and I loved that networking, so you will hear that a lot. But I did all of the assessments, and I loved working with the children and parental guidance, etc. And then we moved to Tanzania for 4 years. Our two girls were 5 and 8. My husband got a position in Dar es Salaam. So I wasn't allowed to work. I wasn't allowed a working permit. And before we went, I just knew that I need to do something for myself, because it's going to be good for my husband. It's going to be good for my children. It's going to broaden their horizon. It's just going to be amazing. So I embarked on the PhD journey. And long story short, I used my own personal experience of being an expat spouse who was not allowed to work, so a trailing spouse in essence, fueled this interest in me we didn't get any support, emotional support from the multinational company that sent us abroad. And that changed my interest and my passion. So I did a study on, once again, positive psychology. So flourishing beyond borders. I looked at the resilience and the character strengths and self-perceived well-being of the trailing spouse during international relocation. So my passion is people who are considering going, to empower them, help them, assist them, and also just knowing that people who are living abroad, wherever that might be, need culturally aligned care.
Yes.
And that sparked my new interest. So I love working with women. I love working with their work-life balance as a mom, as a professional, etc. I love doing parental guidance. I don't have all the answers. I've got 2 teenagers, 15 and 18, but I love parental guidance. And then I love working with South Africans living, especially in Africa. My study was focused on South Africans living on the African continent. And I love working with them and seeing how they find strength where they didn't know that they had. We are much stronger than we think we are. So that's what I love doing. I don't do any marriage counseling or couples therapy. I've got wonderful colleagues who specialize in that. But family sessions, parental guidance, and one-on-one therapy is what I love most.
Yeah. So since you've come back, so you then continued with that on that trajectory where that's the area that you specialize. So let's talk a little bit about then how did you end up in private practice? Because you said, while you were there, you obviously couldn't work and you did your PhD. So when you came back, is that when you started your practice?
I resumed my practice. So yes, but I had to actually start from scratch. So I opened my private practice in 2004 in Johannesburg. I had my network there established. And after 11 years, I had to pause. My supervisor told me that it's not a stop, it's a pause. You're still a psychologist, even if you're not seeing clients. Just to wrap my head around that. And then when we moved back, we didn't move to Joburg. We moved to a completely new town, city. So I had to start from scratch again. So 2019 was quite difficult because I had to finish off my PhD during the first 6 months. And I started again. And then 2020 happened.
Yes.
So it was quite disastrous, I must say. It was daunting at times because I felt like I had to start from scratch. I didn't have a network here, so I had to go and introduce myself to the doctors in the area and other healthcare professionals to just join forces. I joined a psychology forum that has social workers and psychologists and counselors, just to meet people. So that was it. It felt like 2004 all over again. But this time around, I had a little bit more self-confidence.
Well, that's actually a treat for our viewers, because you are in a unique position to speak from experience of starting practices twice.
Yes,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean?
Absolutely.
And usually I ask guests, guests come on and they've started their practice and they had like it was like a timeline as they built their practice. So usually I would ask guests, okay, what lessons did you learn when you started, and if you had to do it all over? But you actually had the opportunity to do it all over again. And the other thing is, because it was in such the timing apart was so far. The time when you started your practice was pre social media, digital. And then you started over, because I always say, like, as much as we learn from these seasoned practice owners who have like a 20-year-old practice, when you ask them, how did you start your practice? How did you get clients? They are speaking from the perspective of pre-digital age. So you have the unique perspective of saying, okay, this is how I started my practice back then. And this is what I learned from that when I did it the second time, plus new challenges that I now had to learn. And this is what I learned. So tell me about, I think let's take it from the angle of, when you first started your practice, you mentioned you had a network. What were the stark differences between when you started your practices back pre-digital age and then when you started it in 2019? And what were the key learnings you took from the first time that really helped you the second time?
That's such a good question, because I wasn't the same person that I started off in private practice. So that, first of all, I think one of my biggest challenges in 2004 was, and you speak so much about that, is marketing myself. Because as healthcare providers, no one taught us that you were going to be the CEO of your company, and that you are the brand. You are not selling a product, you're selling yourself. And that, oh my word, it was so difficult to go and market myself and introduce myself to people and so forth, because I did the face-to-face thing. LinkedIn didn't exist. So apart from that, I had to learn to be patient, because I thought, and this is one of the misconceptions of newly registered psychologists, is I'm seeing many of those in supervision, is the moment that you registered, you've got it all going. And the office is set up, but no one is knocking on the door, and no one is
if you hold it, they will come.
exactly that. So I learned to be patient with the process and be kind to myself, because there's a lot of insecurity when you start out. And it's so unnecessary, because you've come such a long way. I mean, if you think of OTs, speeches, physios, and people taking the long haul, they studied very hard to be where they are at. But for some odd reason, you don't have the confidence in yourself to actually use your knowledge. You don't have the experience yet, but you will get the experience as it goes. I think it was easier for me in 2019, and one of the gifts that COVID has given us is that everything is digitalized. So that made it much easier. For me, being a networker, jumping onto LinkedIn and finding similar or people similar to me or in the same area and so forth, much easier. So yes, there are a number of things that I learned from myself from the start. When I started out, I would also say that when I started out, I did not have very good boundaries. I would often go over time with the session and not charge the person the extra 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And also just, protecting myself from phone and when are they allowed to contact me, etc., etc. So that got so much better. I think I just grew more mature. I became more mature and so forth. And then obviously I think the billing, my husband used to say back in the days, oh my goodness, you're so busy, but the bank account does not reflect that. So
Yes.
because I would die if I had to pull out the credit card machine after someone cried for an hour.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
So that was a big, big challenge for me, is to firstly know that I'm worth whatever I charge, and that I deserve being paid for the service that I provide. And secondly, to charge and to figure out a way of earning what you are supposed to earn, and having a system. I didn't have systems back then, so I Word invoices on Word and so forth. So, but you learn as you go.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously systems are unique to an individual. As an ADHD person, that I know that better than everyone, like every client has a different need. So there's no like one solution fits all. But there are sort of foundational things that you can put in place, that everyone can put in place. So for those psychologists who are finding that same problem, they have clients coming in, they're starting to grow, but now they're finding they just don't have time for anything because they have to manage all these things outside of the sessions. What are some of the basic like systems that one needs to put in place as early as possible to help get you ready for when growth does happen?
I think have a proper booking system. So whatever you use, but I will tell you about the practice management solution that I am currently using and was part of developing. But to know your bookings, that your bookings are done professionally and it's clean and it's concise and you can view I like viewing a week, to know in advance what, to have some form of predictability, what is lying ahead, etc. So I would definitely say that's very important if you want to use a booking platform or calendar. And then your invoicing and payments. Because for me, it's so important to be professional, because my clients also pick up on that. They would often, provide feedback and say, wow, this was so seamless, or thank you so much. This video call was amazing, or something like that. So I think it's important to know, and people starting out now are very, very lucky, because they've got many, many platforms to choose from, and they get to start paperless from the get-go. I had to convert 17 years of practice onto a platform, which was a huge adjustment. Now I'm sold, and I'm so happy using it. But I think people starting out in private practice now, I'm slightly jealous, because they get to the administrative part of running a practice, whether you are a coach or an OT or a speechy, physio, psychologist, social worker. The administrative burden is huge. And you rightly mentioned, Tasneem, that you often do that outside of office hours.
Yes.
So it takes up time to just consolidate everything, get your notes and stuff ready and finished off and so forth, and then invoicing the clients. So it's a real hurdle, but luckily they have many options out there, and we didn't. We did it when
Yeah.
we started out, you know.
So speaking of the options, I would like to get into one of the what option you use and this product that you've been part of.
Yes.
But before we get there, I think to preface that with this, the fact that, like you said, back then there weren't that many options because a lot of the options that were software based were developed by software developers or maybe
Yes.
administrators from the schemes, or and they have like a
Yes.
coder, not health professionals themselves. And a lot of those products have over time, they've kind of developed, when people complain, whatever, but it's still not, for the people, by the people kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
And the newer products that are coming on the market now, I'm finding are having a lot more input from actual health professionals, both from software point of view, but other services as well, like marketing for health professionals,
Yes.
where it's now actual health professionals who are brought into the fold because they understand what the issues are. So that was what you actually encountered, right? So
Yes.
tell us a bit about that journey, because you
Mm.
then kind of deviated away. You're still in private practice, but you kind of then started got involved in a whole other business, which to
Exactly.
solve your problem. So
My
tell us a bit
problem.
about that. Yes.
It's
Tell
actually
us first of
very,
all what the problem was that you were experiencing,
yeah.
got you to that point, and then what were you trying to solve for, and how did you get involved with this software
Okay.
company?
So, firstly, I want to affirm what you said. I think it's crucially important to have clinicians as part of the development of any software platform used by healthcare providers, but not necessarily doctors or specialists. Because many of the
100%.
platforms that are out there they've got needles and this and that and this
Yes.
procedure, and that's not what we want,
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think there's a bit of it's a little bit selfish, but this is something that I wished I had. So I started years ago chatting to my husband saying, listen, I need a one-stop shop. I'm not tech savvy, but I am ADD. So I'm just saying it out there. Hi, people, I'm ADD.
Okay.
So I can frustrate the living daylights out of myself because I'm all over the place. And the moment I think I'm now busy with one invoice, an email pops in and I quickly answer the email and then I forget about the invoice. And so it was born out of frustration, and also time that it hacked off my diary. And this time, or the time that I spent on the administrative tasks, ate a lot of family time. It caused me to work at night and not spend time with my girls or my husband and so forth. So and I couldn't bill for those hours. It was ultimately a waste. Plus, I was grabbing onto different platforms since 2020. It is, we got to use Zoom and MS Teams and all of those that but then you have to send a link. And I forget to send the link. And then the client says, oh, please remember to send me the link. Okay, so it's unprofessional, etc. So Trova as a company and as a company started in 2019, and our CEO is Dana Allison, and also co-founder of this platform that we developed. And we started joining forces in 2020. Because of my study or my PhD interest and the title that I researched, a friend of mine in Dar es Salaam from the Netherlands introduced me to Dana, a Canadian, because they both lived in Senegal together on a previous post. So, and that is the world is a village. So I met up with her, and this friend of mine just said, listen, you have a passion for mental health and people living abroad and companies not knowing what trauma you are putting people through. And Dana has a passion for that. You should talk. So for both of us, this is Dana has a medical background as a medical doctor and digital background. So this is her third digital health company that she is started. And we first of all, we said, okay, we share in mental health support and we want to provide culturally aligned care globally. But let's start from the very beginning by establishing a platform and customizing that so that providers in other countries can use this platform, and it basically irons out all the administrative hassles that we currently have. So since 2020, we were talking about entering in conversation and saying, what do you need, Truida? So I said, okay, I need a system that looks after everything in my practice, from calendar, onboarding, all my documents, notes, to payments. So, and I'm very proud to be associated with this, because since our MVP, the minimal viable product that we put to market in end of October last year, we have grown so much and learned so much from our providers, getting their input and customizing it and changing a bit and so forth. So that's how Trova came about. Is I basically just wanted to make my own life easier, and I knew I wasn't the only one, because we've got friends and so forth who uses multiple platforms. A calendar platform, an invoicing platform, a claiming platform, etc. And then stacks and stacks of notes and files, paperwork. And I challenged myself last year and I said, I want to really, really go paperless. And I'm willing to take the plunge and to tackle this beast, because it is an adjustment.
Yes.
It is an adjustment. But now that everything is consolidated and part of one system, it's heaven. It's heaven, because I don't have to send out invoices. I don't have to send out appointment reminders, and so forth. So that, in a nutshell, is how Trova came about.
So what is Trova exactly?
Okay. So Trova is a software management solution for healthcare providers, for coaches, social workers, OTs, physios, speech therapists, psychologists, counselors, and pastoral care people. So it's mainly focused on people who make clinical notes, but who don't necessarily need, work medically. But we have procedure codes, we have time codes, and we want to, just streamline our practice. That is, it's aimed at healthcare providers to make your life easier, and it's a one-stop shop. So it is literally, it pulls through from client onboarding or a calendar management straight through to payment. Yes, so it's a one-stop shop.
So now, as we mentioned earlier, in today's world, there are more and more of those kind of one-stop shop type softwares coming about. What would you say is the differentiator that makes Trova stand out? Like, what makes Trova different?
That's a stunning question. None of the platforms that exist today have payment integration linked to the platform. Trova has that. So we have a payment link, and people can choose how to pay: EFT, Masterpass, SnapScan, or credit card, debit card. So it makes it so easy for the provider and for the client. Also, we've got an embedded virtual platform that works brilliantly. So that's also part of it. And I think none of the programs that exist out there have got everything. So we have calendar automated reminders. We've got the notes. We've got the services that we can add, Plus, it's got a client interface and a provider interface. The client can book and request appointments. You have your own web URL that you can send to clients if you wanted to do that. And then it's end-to-end solution. So that basically sets us apart. Plus, we have already started or opened in 2 other countries, and we are soon going to start in other countries as well. Plus, we will then customize the platform in terms of language, currency, etc. It's already in Spanish as well as English. And then you can, and also what's stunning now is, say for instance, you have someone living in Nigeria, and they want to pay with dollars, then they can pay you in dollars on Paystack. That's the vehicle we use. So, or we use that as our payment gate. So it's very simple.
And I mean, we are seeing now that because of a lot more people offering telehealth than before, that there are lots of people who are seeing more and more international clients. I myself have international clients that are not necessarily occupational therapy clients. They are coaching clients. So I just remove some of the clinical assessment aspects, and as soon as they have any clinical diagnosis that needs to be seen to, I refer them to a psychologist.
Me too.
But I have got international coaching clients, and there are more and more people who are seeing that. Or you have a case of, there are lots of therapists who find their clients are relocating, because so many people, I mean, it's a global village, right? And so the person wants to continue because they don't want to start a whole new relationship with a new therapist.
Absolutely.
But now they're earning in pounds or Australian dollars, New Zealand dollars, or the US dollars, whatever, and they want to be able to just easily pay. So that really makes it so much easier if you can offer payment in local currency.
Absolutely. And you can stay where you are. It doesn't matter, and they don't pay astronomical amounts to do an EFT or to transfer money to South Africa. So it's much easier. You're 100% correct. Most of those people wanted they want it to be easy to have the service, and to see the professional or the provider that they wish to see. We are, so it makes it so much easier.
Yeah. One of the other things that I would say, I've obviously looked at Trova, and one of the things that I would say, which it might seem like a silly thing to say, but one thing that struck me is that it's a very aesthetically pleasing platform. And I know that shouldn't matter, but it does matter.
It does.
Because you are, it's the same thing as saying, well, it shouldn't matter what your office looks like, but it does, because the online platform is like the digital version of your office. So your office, you always make it look pretty, right? You put a plant there, you make your books nice, you've got like a candle. So when you are doing these administrative tasks, which you already hate doing, because that's not what you became a therapist or practice owner for, you want to at least go on to something that you like to look at. Because now if you go into this horrible, ugly looking thing, then it just adds to the and I'm also speaking from the sensory point of view, right? Like it does add to it. People don't realize how much the look and feel and sound of something can impact your motivation to actually
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more, because for me it is important what it looks like. It is important how intuitive the program is set up, so that anyone can use it. I actually did a test call with my mom. She's 74 the other day, and it was intuitive enough that my mom knew what to do on her phone to connect with me. So I think that to me is important, is that it needs to be inviting. That is an extension of you as a provider. Just as your office space tells people who you are.
Yeah.
It really is. So it is pretty, and it's important for us so that it looks
Yeah.
nice. I'm very, my promoter, my PhD promoter teased me so much because I would choose a font.
Yes.
It would take me an hour choosing a font. And then he said, no, it's not important. Don't make pretty.
Yeah. Yes.
But to me, it is important.
Yeah.
Very much.
So,
And the nice
I mean,
thing about,
obviously, yeah.
sorry, I wanted to say with Trova, the nice thing about it is you can customize it. Any provider can customize it to have the look and feel of the provider's logo and photos and emails and so forth. So it doesn't have to look like Trova because it will,
which is really important in terms of marketing and branding, because people then, they are constantly exposed to the visual elements of your brand, so it becomes more entrenched in like who they associate you with. Yeah,
absolutely. And the other thing that I just wanted to say is the invoicing or the email that gets sent to the client with the attached invoice and payment link does not come from you, Esteemed Abrams, or from Truida Botha. It comes from Trova Health. Yes. So it doesn't disrupt the relationship between you and the client. It's impersonal, but it's beautiful. And you can customize that email so that it has your signature on it and so forth. But the invoicing part, I find it's almost like you have a middleman.
Yeah, there's like a kind of middle, between you, a barrier between you.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is the perfect solution also just for people starting out who cannot afford an assistant.
Okay.
And for group practices, we've got many group practices on board with many providers and one administrator. The administrator has access to everything but notes.
Okay.
Own login details, everything, no access to your clinical notes. So it really is for the starter practitioner. It's wonderful because from the get-go you do it properly. And then for the established practitioners, it's just a matter of playing around and to get yourself going.
Yeah. But now, okay, I mean, the Trova software solved your problem. And then that obviously helped in terms of time and processes in your practice. But at the same time, because you are, a director in the business, it almost canceled each other out because now you've added another role to yourself. So the time you saved in your practice has been replaced by a whole other business. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that, because I'm seeing that a lot more how practice owners are recognizing that they can't put all their eggs in one basket. We live in an age where even if you are working in a 9-to-5, so many people are looking at side hustles because COVID has taught us that you have to diversify your revenue streams, whether that's through investing or starting a side hustle or starting a whole entire business. But you have to have another revenue stream in case something happens, right?
Absolutely.
But that takes time, right? So tell me a bit about that as a practice owner who now also is involved in a software company. How did you manage that? How do you manage the time split in your role?
It's a challenge because ADD. but what I want to say is you hit the nail on the head. The healthcare providers sell hours, and we only have that many hours per day, and you cannot bill 24 hours. I mean, we know of fraud cases at the HPCSA and so forth of claims for 26 hours per day and so forth.
Sure.
So it's impossible to sustain selling 12 hours a day for your mental health, self-care, etc. So my husband and I back in the days said, I think it's important for us to look at other options, but also do something that I feel passionate about. I don't want to take on something that I don't believe in, because then I won't sell it. I need to channel my passion for this. I need to channel it to other providers and say, listen, it's helped me. So I have to believe in it. And also, yes, long-term goal is to have another revenue stream and loosen me up a bit from private practice. I will always want to be in practice. I don't see myself not doing it and moving solely to Trova, purely because I think it was a calling for me to be a psychologist, and I love spending time with clients. So, but I think along the line, a couple of years on, I might limit my hours or only consult and see 3 patients a day instead of 6. So what I'm currently doing is time management. Is I block certain times out in my diary. Luckily, my girls are big and independent and so forth. The one will have a license in November. So that will help very much.
Yeah.
So they are independent. So I am not bound by a kindergarten child that I have to pick up at 12 noon. So I plan a week ahead. I don't like planning more ahead. I mean, there are certain things that you do, webinars and so forth, but I don't want to feel restricted. So I plan a week ahead and I block hours off for Trova, and whether that is connecting on LinkedIn with people, reaching out. I am driving sales because of being the clinical head. I know the product and I believe in the product.
And you're using it, so
and I'm using it.
Experience,
I'm using it. So I allocate time for Trova and I allocate time for getting, being in practice. And I find that it balances each other out and I get energy from both.
Yeah.
And you will understand what I mean. It's because I do what I love. It doesn't tap me. It doesn't drain me. Yes.
And I mean, I think that's really important things for our listeners who are watching, and they maybe are also thinking like, how can I make an additional revenue stream somewhere?
Yes.
What can I do? That it's important that you must actually like want to do it, because it's going to be taxing on your time. And I think what you mentioned around, like, your kids being older and all of those things, you do have to be realistic about your capacity. One of the things that I often talk about in the Private Practice Growth Club when setting rates is to first, actually, before you even think about a random number, is to actually first work out what your capacity is for how many clients you can take. Then based on that, if you were at a maximum capacity, how much would you have to charge in order to make a profit and pay yourself, right? Then go from there, because now you charge like discovery rates, but the discovery rate doesn't cover all your expenses and all of that, because you only have half their capacity because you have young children that come home in the afternoon. So you have to first work out your capacity. So then in the same way, then if you are looking to start some kind of a side hustle or an alternative revenue stream, be very clear about how much time you actually have available. Because if you do have, everyone's at different life stages. If you do have younger kids who can be sick at any time. I have a therapy client now who was just explaining that she's also a therapist. And she was just explaining like her kids are going on school holidays. In South Africa also schools are breaking up on Friday. But her helper had to leave suddenly because they had a loss in the family. So now she doesn't know what to do because she's so fully booked with assessments, her busiest period. And who's going to look after the kids? So if you still have a side hustle and that's the situation you have to be prepared for, like, do you have things in place? So before you start anything, think about your capacity, think about what's going to energize you and that's going to motivate you when times are tough and you don't feel like doing
Yes.
it. And then think about what supports do you need in place so
Yes.
that when, the shit hits the fan, so to
Yes.
speak,
Oh, absolutely.
how are you going to cope? How on earth are you going to cope?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then start small. So, I mean, not everybody's going to start like a whole entire software company.
No. No.
But even if
No.
it's something small, like selling like scented, the
Yes.
therapy or whatever, start with like the smallest possible thing you can and then
Absolutely.
slowly grow
Yeah.
it from there.
And don't think about, because it evolves. So if you
Yes.
start with the scented putty, you might think, okay, the end, I'm thinking about not the minimal viable product. I'm thinking way ahead with aromatherapy or whatever. Start with what you've got.
Yes.
So, because otherwise we would have never put the minimal viable product out there.
Yes.
Because you'll keep on adding more features instead of just go and
Yes.
see and let it develop and grow itself,
Yeah.
So yes, start small, be realistic. I think that's so important. Be realistic about and chat to people. Do you find the need to have this? Would you benefit from this? Do you think your children would like this? Do your research.
Yeah.
I think research is so important. Plus it's nice, then you can have coffee with your friends.
Yeah.
Do it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all your insights and your time. I'm sure people will find it incredibly insightful. I will, of course, put all the details below if
Perfect.
anybody is interested, maybe wants to refer clients who are, in that specific area that you are specialized in, or if they want to know more about Trova. I'll
They
put all
can
that details
easily
below.
schedule a demo with us. So welcome. I would love to share the platform. Do you want me to just quickly show it? Just how it looks?
Yes, you can. Please do.
Let me quickly show what it looks like. And then this will be a nice teaser for all of you.
Yeah, that will be great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, let's quickly do that. This is what it looks like. Okay, so basically it will open up in your calendar and everything can be run from the calendar. So you can schedule appointments, you can add all of your services, and your services you can customize to have the look and feel that you want them to. So for instance, if you want to change the notification, or if you want to attach files to a certain service, if you want to add multiple lines, I know OTs do need that, and
Yes.
and also EdPsychs. So you can now add many invoice line items with the different codes and the pricing and save. So very easy. You can customize your own profile. So you will have, for instance, let me show you here. You will have a web address. So if you can copy that and send it to clients so that they can request appointments. With your appointments, you will see what's upcoming. If you have a virtual session, you can start your virtual session here.
I also have Tom Cruise as a client.
Oh man, but he's a difficult one, eh?
I think it's because of his high risk, his appetite for high risk activities is why he seems so much.
I think that's why.
Yeah.
That's why.
Because I'm exploring with software as well, like with Smart Suite as a more productivity software.
Yes,
so in order to test it out, I needed like names of like clients.
That's
why
exactly.
I'm saying Tom Cruise is one of my clients. Even
Nicole
Hermione
Kidman.
Granger and the entire cast of the Friends sitcom.
No, I've got many of those. Hugh Grant, you name it. So just in short, you can add your clients, new clients with billing. You can see if it's pending, you are still awaiting payment. You can mark as paid. You can download the invoice, etc. by the time you watch this video, email submissions to medical aids will be integrated.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, so we are very excited about that. And notes, if you can create a note for any client. So if you've got Julia Roberts, you can add a note on Julia Roberts and save it for later, or mark the note complete. Very important. If it's marked complete, you cannot go and edit it. So it is ethically, legally compliant. And all of this is stored in the iCloud space, and you can add as many clients and as many services as you wish. And this is, in short, what it looks like. You can launch, also, if you want to, you can edit your availability and sync with your Google Calendar. And my Google Calendar is the blue that's been pulled in, and then you can work from one calendar only, and everything is in here. You can schedule meetings or events, invite members to those, etc. So yes, this is
Wonderful.
in short, but it's just a teaser. So they're welcome to schedule a demo.
Okay. Yeah, so I also will schedule a demo and maybe put a recording up on my YouTube channel. Perfect. So that people can see, and then if they want to go through it themselves. Yes. So with the Trova, is there a try before you buy option kind of thing? Because, sometimes
you get going for free. So for 30 days, you have the platform to use free of charge. And then we've got two packages at this stage. One is the starter package, that is for people starting out in practice who only has 1 to 3 clients. And then we've got the pro package the starter package is $449 per month, flat fee, no extra surprises and so forth. And then the pro package is $999, including all the features, etc. Also flat fee, no extra charge for email submissions or any of that. So we want it to be affordable and help providers. So
yeah, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much. I don't know if there's anything else you would like to share, maybe a tip or advice or anything, any words of wisdom you'd like to share before we go.
It was lovely chatting with you. And yes, to all the providers out there, just hang in there. It's a roller coaster ride. There are months where we feel despondent and so forth. Just hang in there and have faith in yourself, because you've come a long way. Carry on, don't give up. We all have grit, especially South Africans. We are strong and resilient. And yes, try out Trova. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or whatever, schedule a demo. I'd love to show you the platform. It really is lovely.
Just before you go, a question on that. If somebody already is using a software and they're looking to change, is that something that they would, because that's, I think for a lot of people, the idea of moving stuff over is so daunting that they just don't do anything.
Yes.
I'll just stick with my same provider.
I know. No, don't let that put you off. It is daunting, and I'm not normalizing that. I completely understand, but we would help you to move all your clients onto the new system. We can do it on the back end for you for free of charge. But also it's worth your while. If you want to onboard, start using it for 30 days and see how it works for you. Also, very important, this is a month-to-month subscription. So you can cancel at any time. You would not want to, but you can cancel anytime. You are not bound to a 3-month notice period, etc. And the moment you leave or pause your subscription, you will have access to all of your information. We don't have any way to access your information at all.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so
Okay.
much, and have a great rest of the year. Because at the time of recording this now, because obviously it's not going to be
Yes.
up immediately. It's now June of 2024.
Yes.
So we like slap bang in the middle of the year. So I hope that everything goes well for the rest of the year for you.
And winter. Let's survive winter.
Yes.
Good. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Tasneem. It was lovely
Thanks.
speaking to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.